In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create your own personal portfolio website just like this. So these kind of websites are really great to showcase your project experience, your resume. You can even put any special interest that you have like music or art on these kind of websites and host it on your own domain name. So how do we do this, right? So what I'm going to do is I've picked something easy to start with, and that's called TechFolios. So it's a code-based solution. There are no-code solutions also to build websites, like things like WordPress and Wix. But I actually believe it's very, very easy to build a website with a code-based solution. So we're gonna take one such solution and we're gonna work with it. So TechFolios is really nice. It's got a pretty good default style to it. It's got a lot of themes, and at the same time it's also designed and built really well from an engineering standpoint. So I really liked it, and because it's a code-based solution, there is no end to how much you can customize it and make it just the way you want it, right? So they have a website, techfolios.github.io. You can visit that, and in that there is a quick start. There's a quick start link where you can, if you just follow that, it will tell you how you need to set up your website. So I'll share the links down in the description, but I'll just show you now how we can start doing this, right? Okay, so the first step, as they mention in the quick start guide, is you need to join GitHub if you haven't already. It's a free tool. You can sign up for free with any email address. And once you join GitHub, GitHub is basically a place for you to host your source code. So it's one of the most popular places to host source code. And when we host source code in GitHub, we typically host it under our username. So mine is Renzel, and you will see for each project, we basically call it a repository. So each source code project that we have goes under a repository. So to start this particular project, the website project, since we need to copy an existing project from TechFolios that already exists, they mentioned that we need to go to TechFolios/template. So let's just go there. When you open this in GitHub, you're going to get a view of the repository, the template repository of TechFolios. So it's just loading, just give it a second. And what you need to do to copy a project, anybody's project, into your account is you need to click this fork button. So forking a project means making a copy of it, exact identical clone. It's going to come with all of its project history and everything. So since I have multiple GitHub accounts, it's asking me to choose. I'm going to pick my personal account. Right. So once you fork it, you can see right now it has redirected to github.com renzel/template. So this is my own account, but this is the code that I copied from TechFolios that has come here. Till now, I have not made any changes to this. And the first thing that we'll need to do is to actually convert this project into a special project called a GitHub Pages project. So what I did was, from the repository, there's a settings tab. So just click on that. And inside settings tab, the repository name, just change it from template to your username.github.io, right? So in my case, it's renzel.github.io. And once you rename it, you can see it change in your browser address bar as well, right? And when you do that, if you come to actions, if you click on this actions button, you'll see automatically that something has triggered here. An action has triggered. An action in GitHub Action is nothing but an automation. So something that automatically runs when an event happens in GitHub. So there can be different kinds of events that happen in GitHub, and for which you can build custom actions. But this is like an inbuilt action within GitHub itself. So whenever you rename your project in this format, username.github.io, GitHub recognizes that it is a GitHub page, and then it will trigger this special action called build and deploy. Pages build and deploy. And what this does is something very interesting. So in software engineering, when we write source code, we don't want to, usually it's a good practice that we should not be concerned with the build of that source code and the deploy. So build means converting that source code into the final artifacts that will, go get pushed on a server or on the final user's machine. And deploying is actually pushing those artifacts to that machine. So if you see here, the build and deploy is automatically taken care of. So this is called CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, where we just need to focus on writing the source code. If we update anything in this website, you will see, I'll show you that, it will again trigger the same action, and that will again build the website and deploy it. So that without having to do anything, your website will be up. So we can see once the deploy step is complete, you see that green tick mark. You can click on that link, and now this is renzel.github.io right now. So it doesn't look well formatted, but it's actually a website that's running, and there was nothing running here prior to this. So we'll fix the formatting in just a minute, but I just wanted to show you GitHub Actions, which is a very important concept in general, right? Not just related to GitHub. So now that we have published our project and we have converted it to GitHub Pages, let's just update some project metadata just so that anyone who comes to your source code website, the page for your source code, they don't see generic information. They see information that's very specific for your repository. So I'm just going to update the name, the description, and the website. Right, so this doesn't actually make any impact to the final thing, but it's just good hygiene to do this so that anyone who comes here sees an updated information about your project. So the first thing we need to fix is the look and feel of this home page itself, right? So this looks off, and that's because the default template that we have copied, it was configured for a different path, and we need to update the paths. So to do that, in your repository home, just click on this file called config.yaml, right? So there are two concepts here that you just need to be aware of. What is this config for? This config is actually something called a Jekyll configuration. Jekyll is a tool to generate websites. So websites are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files, and Jekyll helps you generate that in a and generate it in an easy way. So it gives you a lot of features like layouts, themes, things like that you can reuse, which are very, very handy. So that is one. So this config file is related to Jekyll, and then the other thing that you need to be aware of is this file is a YAML file. So YAML is just a data format. So it's similar to XML or JSON where you're just storing data. It's got this particular syntax. So if you just read up about YAML, there are some online YAML playgrounds where you can play around with, formatting your text in YAML and converting it to JSON or other formats. So you can get a feel of what this actually means there. But I can just tell you quickly that these are just key values in this document. But YAML is more complicated than that. You can do more complex objects. But here this document is just keys and values. So the keys that we are interested in are just the first top 3 ones. So we want to update the title so that it doesn't refer to Molly here and refers to my name. So I'll just change that. And I'll just remove this. And you want to update the URL to your username at GitHub. So renzel.github.io. And you want to leave the base template blank, right? So that template part doesn't make any sense anymore. And in GitHub or in Git in general, whenever you make a change, to save that change, we call it a commit. So you're basically committing a change to the repository. So GitHub has these nice defaults where it for the messages, like whenever you commit, you need to mention a commit message and an optional description, and GitHub already puts a default for the commit message, but it's always a good idea to put in extra information along with that so that you can in the future be more know exactly what you did. So let me just put it in the commit name, commit message itself. So update my title and URL. That's enough. So keep your commit messages really short. So now when you update this, if you click on actions, you'll see that another action has automatically started. So this is the whole idea behind continuous integration and deployment. So I'm just making code changes. I actually don't need to click on this actions tab. I'm just clicking on it to show you that this has fired, and this is something that's just running in the background, and I don't have to do anything. Like, it is only building my website. So Jekyll has some steps required for you to build a Jekyll website, and it's doing that. And once that's done, then for that website to be hosted, GitHub has to do some steps on its side. So all that is being done for you automatically. So the continuous integration and deployment is taken care of for you by GitHub directly, automatically, and you don't have to worry about it. Right? So we have to just wait for the change to be updated. You have to wait for the deploy step to complete. Once it's complete, you can click on that button. So here you can see the website layout is still messed up. This is probably a caching issue, I think. So I'm just going to refresh my page, and there you go. So sometimes you may face these issues, like if you just click on a link, if that link is maybe already open or something, your browser may not actually fetch the page again. It may just render it from the cache. So by just refreshing it, that may help. Sometimes that also doesn't help in more advanced cases because there are different layers of caches at different points. But in this case, it fixed the problem. So here you can see the layout has been fixed just with those simple changes. And let's just explore this layout a little. So what all do we have here? We have projects. We have essays. And we have a resume, right? In a nice resume format. So all of this, you can see, has a lot of template data. So we need to update all of this. And that's what we'll do next. So if you come back to your repository, there is this folder called data. So if you click on data, inside that there is a file called bio.json. So JSON, just like YAML, is another data format. It's closely related to JavaScript. In fact, it stands for JavaScript object notation. So it's a very, very popular data format used by web technologies. So you can read up further about it, what this means. I'm not going to go into it, but basically, whenever you see a key or any kind of a text inside double quotes, it on the left hand side, that's basically a key, and on the right hand side of this colon, that's the value. So for example, here the key is name and the value is Molly. Here, one step above it, you can see the key is basics and the value is, when it starts with this curly braces, it means it's an object. So this entire thing is an object, and that is assigned to this value called basics, this key called basics, sorry, right? And if you see a square bracket like this one, it's actually an array. So profiles is an array of all these objects. So you need to look at this, look at each of these fields and update it according to your data. So the way we update it is, like, suppose you go and you click on bio.json, you're going to see it like this, and then you're going to get an edit button over here. So click on that. That brings you into a text editor like this. Okay, so now we need to update this with our own data. And in my case, I've already done this in the past. So I'm just going to copy that in the interest of time. So let me just open this file on my local machine, which has the data. I'm just going to copy it and paste it here. Okay, so once it's pasted, then I can just save this. So I can just say updated with my personal data. And just before I submit this, I just want to tell you, if you follow the guide, one of the early steps they tell you is to just update set the homepage content. And the homepage content is just the first few keys over here. It's your name and all of these things, and probably maybe these profiles as well, and interests, and a few of these on the top. But then the more further you go down, this content is actually what is shown in your resume. So if you go to your resume, this is where this is where it gets populated from. Now, because I'm updating the whole file in one shot, I'm going to be updating both my homepage and my resume, which they call bio, at the same time. So I'll be doing step 3 in this quick start guide. So I'll not be doing step 4 in this video at all. That's something that I'll leave for you to explore, changing the homepage theme. But I'll be doing step 3 and not step 5, but basically this one, set bio content, step 9 at the same time. Right? So let me just submit that. Okay, it's submitted. Again, you can just take a look at actions to see that it has started. And once that's done, the website will be updated. So while that's updating, I'll just quickly show you the quick start guide. What are the steps? So we've done all this already. So we've already configured the template. This was the steps where you have to fork the existing template and then change the config.yaml at the start. So we've done all that. We've set the homepage content right now. I've just copy pasted something that I've already created. So you will, spend some more time maybe to update it based on your data. I have not done this, setting the homepage theme. This is something I'm going to leave for you to do. You can change the theme. They have a bunch of themes and they've detailed here how you can change it into different styles. So the next step, if you see, is they're saying set project content. So if you remember, there were a bunch of projects in this website, in the portfolio website, and you can, they're telling you how you can update it. So I'll just show you very quickly how I update my project data. Before that, let's just take a look at the deployment. Let's refresh this. Okay, so now when I refresh this, you can see that my name has updated here. The title, the description, all of the links. If you see down below here, all of the links have updated to my links. And if I click on resume, you can see this again is showing the old data. Again, if I do a refresh, it's updated with all of my data, right? So all of this is mine. So this is fine, but you can also see that there is a small bug here where it's not showing my image. So to do that, I need to upload my image. So to update the image, what you need to do is go to the root of your repository, and there is this folder called images. Click on that. And inside that, you will see a bunch of images that are already there. This was part of the template. You can delete each of these if you want. Not all of them, maybe some of them might be used still by your resume, but some are not required, like molly.png was the template image profile pic that was there, and you want to upload your own. So the way you would upload your own is click on add file, click on upload files, and you can just then drag and drop your files from your local machine. So I have this opened up over here where all my images that I need are here. So I'm just going to click on this, drag it and drop it. And then just wait for this to complete. In the meantime, you can write a small commit message, uploading my profile pic. And once that is done, click on commit. Okay, it'll take a couple of seconds, but after that's done, so now it has uploaded my pic. And again, if you go to actions, whenever you make any change, automatically it starts building and deploying. So it typically takes about a minute, I've noticed, for it to deploy. So we'll leave that be, and then we'll just go back to the guide and see what's next, right? So it says next is set project content. So the way you would do this, if you read the guide, is there is a folder called projects. And inside this projects folder, you have 3 projects right now in the template. If you see the template itself, it's actually got 3 projects. And each of those projects is defined by these .md files. So MD stands for markdown, and markdown is, again, it's a special syntax that is, it has like, certain special syntax that you can use to kind of format it. It's actually very simple. The whole idea of markdown is, rather than writing complex HTML, which is, very verbose and very lengthy, they're trying to make it very simple so that you don't have to write all those HTML tags. You can just write as if you were writing in a simple notepad, and it will automatically format it. So if you see in this markdown, it also supports adding HTML as well. And at the start of it, you will see these 3 dashes, this content between 3 dashes. So this is something specific to Jekyll. They call it front matter. It's basically nothing but the data that you want to use either in this document or in some other document, but it's basically a place where you can store some data. So this is just like YAML keys again. So for updating your projects, you can edit the existing files. And when you edit the existing files, you don't want to tweak these things, the layout and the type. So this is like something that is already configured for you. Like it's saying that your project should pick the layout, the project layout, which is something that they have defined. And you can read up about Jekyll more to understand what is layouts and how it is defined. But what you need to update is, the images. You need to upload your own image in that same folder, images folder, and then upload the path to that image, update the title, permalink. Of course, you wouldn't want to use their permalink. So permalink is nothing but the URL at which your project itself is hosted. So what I mean by that is, say micromouse. If I click read more, you'll see that it is my base URL, that's renzel.github.io/project/micromouse. So the permalink is /project/micromouse, right? So if I change this to something else, then ideally you would have, like when you click on read more, this in your browser bar would show that. So for your case, of course, what you would just need to tweak is that micromouse. Like you would want to rename it to something meaningful and relevant for your project, right? So other than that, you can tweak the date in this format based on when you completed the project. You can add some labels which are shown here. You can see a couple of labels here. Oh, by the way, you can notice my profile picture has updated as well, right? So this deployment has completed and now it has picked up my profile pic correctly. So coming back to projects, the labels that you put are what appear here at the bottom. And summary is again this text that shows up in the thumbnails on the project screen. So you can update all that, and inside the description below you can write your own text for your project. You can put images, and you can see how they have done. They have, if you see their three different project examples, they have put images in different ways. You can see how they've done it, and kind of tweak your projects exactly how you like. So in the interest of time, again, I'm just going to upload quickly the projects that I already have created in the past, that's already on my system. So for that, I'm going to click on upload files, but in your case you may not need to upload files. You can just directly edit those files and update the projects in GitHub itself. So my files again are here on my computer. Let me just select all of my projects files. So I have these 4. I drag and drop them here. So GitHub is smart enough to know when you're updating a file or when you're adding a new file. So there were originally only 3 files, and this 4th one is being added. So GitHub will actually update these 3 and it will add this. So I'm just going to write a commit message saying adding my projects and commit that. Okay, done. So if I click on projects now, I can see 4 files, and if I click on the first one, see, this is specific to me. This is actually one of my projects. So so GitHub internally also tries to render markdown files, but if you click on the edit, you can actually see how it is just text. So even though GitHub tries to render it, the markdown is a text format. So if you click on edit, you can actually see the raw text of it. So this is the one of the projects that I've uploaded. But if you notice in the markdown itself, there seems to be an issue. It's not able to load a few thumbnails. And if I just wait for this action to complete, which it has, and I just refresh my projects page, you can see all my project thumbnails have not loaded. That's because I've not uploaded any of those images as well. And that's what I'll just do next, right? So again, go back to my repository, go back to images. So I felt this was pretty simple. Like there was hardly any coding to do with this entire, template, and which is why I really liked it. And also like, because it is a code-based solution, you can just tweak it in the future how you like. You can actually understand Jekyll, the way it works, and go in the code and tweak things to style it just the way you like, and learn really a lot from this. So I thought it was a great starting project to build a website for yourself. So now let me just upload all of my project files. So come into images, so all the project images to be specific. So let me just select all of these, and let me unselect files that are not related to my project. So I've done all of this in the past, which is why I already have all the files ready. So when you do it, you may take some more time for this step. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm just going to drag and drop all of that. I'm going to put a little commit message saying adding project assets. So there are about 12 files. It's going to take a second to upload all of them. Yep, it's done. So let's commit changes. Okay, done. So again, it will be building. If you go to actions, you'll see build and deploy has started again. Everything is set up for you. You don't have to configure things on your own. At the same time, GitHub is so cool that you can, if you really want to understand how these things work, if you just keep clicking on them and clicking inside, like keep clicking each subtopic, you can see with a lot of detail what exactly it's doing, right? So this particular action, if you see each and every step of it, you can go very detailed if you really want to. And then if you read up about GitHub Actions, you can learn how to write your own actions in the future as well. All right, so I think it's done deploying. Yes. So let's just reload this page. So this is one of my project pages. So there you can see all the thumbnails have come. And if I come to my main projects page, there you go. It's showing all the projects over there. Great. So this looks good. I can see all my projects here. Now the next step that I want to do is I want to update these essays. So if I click on essays, So the idea behind essays is that it's like written, anything that you write, you can put up your writing over here. So I do write, but since I have my newsletter, I don't want to have my essays up on my website as well. It's just going to be a lot of hassle for me to manage it. So I actually want to remove this essays tab altogether, and this button as well over here. So I've already looked at the code from my side and dug it out and figured out what to do for this. So I'm just going to, in the interest of time today, just dive right into where you need to make the changes. So let's go to includes. So I'll show you first where each of these things is being rendered, right? So if you look at this entire page, and if you trace the source code, if you basically debug the source code and try to understand how this Jekyll works, at the end of the day, it comes into this folder called includes. Inside that, there are themes for each of the pages, and the home page, the default theme for the home page is this theme home built-in one, right? And you'll see that being set in your config.yaml in the root of the repository. So if I click on this, you will see inside this, this is the way Jekyll is typically done, right? So you see like HTML code, but inside that HTML code, there are some special markers, which is very specific to Jekyll. So this is telling, Jekyll has support for loops, and it has support for if conditions, and like basic things that you would do in programming, which is like really powerful and really useful when you're trying to build reusable HTML. So in this, you'll see that there is a variable called num essays, and that's what's being used on the home page to show this, right? To show that essays of 3 over here, like you can see that down here. So essays of num essays is being shown over here in this point, around lines 44 to 46. So there are multiple ways to remove this button. So one thing I noticed is, for example, this button is going to be shown even if I delete the essays. So this num essays is actually calculated. It's computed from the number of essays that are actually there in your repository, right? And essays are, I'll show you where in the repository essays are stored. But if you see, this thing is actually, this button is shown, this essays button is shown even when your num essays is 0. So there are 2 ways to fix this. So let me just edit this file. You could get into a little bit of coding, like understand how Jekyll if conditions work, and you can write an if condition that says if the num essays is only greater than 0, only then put this button. That's the right thing to do. But in the interest of not doing coding today, and also to keep a task for you to try on your own, I'll let you do that. But I'm just going to put this exclamation mark followed by 2 dashes at the start, just inside the tag. And this is the closing tag, this \a. So over here, I'm going to put 2 dashes over there. And what this does is it comments this entire thing out. So this is the way you would write, one of the ways you would write an HTML comment. So I've just commented out this entire piece of code. So if I'll put a message saying commenting out essays button and submit that. And once this deploys, after a minute, you're going to see that on the home page, you're not going to have that essays button. So the other place where we need to fix things is if I click on resume, you'll see that there is this navigation bar on the top, and that also shows essays. And after debugging the code, I saw that, that this doesn't go when you just do that change that I did. So this is obviously handled somewhere else. So let's look at where it's handled. So again, if you come to the root of your repository, if you come to includes, and in that there is a file called nav bar, I believe, menu bar, sorry. So click on menu bar. Here you will see that there is a button called essays in the menu bar. So this is what's showing you that essays button along with the number of essays in brackets. And here you can actually see that there is some code saying that checking whether, the number of essays is positive, it's greater than 0, and only then, put that button there. So again, we could fix this by commenting this out like how we did before, but because this if condition is already there, and the right thing to do is, because I don't have essays, is to make sure that num essays is 0. Let's try to make our essays 0. Like let's remove all the essays that already exist in this repository. So to do that, let's go back. So we don't need to comment this to remove that button. Let's just delete the essays. So let's go to the root of the repository and click on this essays folder. And just like projects, there are 3 markdown files for each of the essays, one markdown file for each of the 3 essays. So what I'm going to do to delete them is click on each of those files, and there is a delete icon associated with that, with the, with the file view. So just click that and then click commit. Right? Nothing specific needs to be done. I'm not even going to tweak the commit message because it's very clear in what its purpose is. It's saying that we are deleting the files. So one thing you should know with GitHub is when you delete files like this, you're actually not deleting them. You're just sort of like hiding them, in the sense that GitHub stores your entire history of commits. So at any point of time, if you actually wanted to go back and retrieve this file, it is possible. Like the file is stored in the repository. So it's just that the current state of the repository says that these files are no longer needed, and so you don't get to see them when you browse the repository in its current state. But there are ways to browse the repository in its historical state. So I'll leave that for you to explore. You can look at commit history. You can look at, you can download, even you can look at it on your local machine as well, instead of looking at it on GitHub, or you can look at it on GitHub. So basically, if you just click on this commits button, you can see the commit history. So I'm not going to get into that. But so right now I've deleted those essays. So ideally the num essays should be 0. So let's just look at actions. And once this is done, let's just confirm that the essays button has permanently gone from both this view and from the home page as well. So I think the home page would have been deployed earlier. So let me just refresh this. Yes, if you can see here, the home page button has gone already, right? Because this got deployed earlier. So this one is still deploying. It's almost done. There you go. It's done. Let me just refresh this. So essays button is not here. Let me click on resume and again refresh because it has some cache. And essays is gone from here as well. This one went because we deleted the essays. So unless and until you delete the essays, this button will not go. So now that we are done with fixing the essays, so let's just go back to the quick start guide. So we've done set project content. The theme is something that you will do. We have basically deleted essay content. So step 7 and step 8 are done. Bio content we have already done. Number 10, adjusting colors, I'm not going to do. It's something that again you can play around with and have a lot of fun with that. So at this point of time, my website is complete, right? It's got all my bio data. It's got all my project information. If I go deep inside my projects, everything is looking nice. And if I go to my home page, that looks fine. All the links are updated correctly. So everything is fine, except I want to have my own, domain pointing to this. So I don't want people to go to renzel.github.io. That's a very unusual domain to point to for maybe certain, a lot of people. So I want something simpler, something more catchy. So if you want to have a guide for custom domains, I recommend checking out GitHub Pages documentation on custom domains. So I'll share the link down below in the description, and they walk you through, what is custom domains, how it works with GitHub Pages, and the steps for setting it up. Right now, what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you because I've already done it in the past. But you should go through this guide and understand, what exactly are you doing. So I usually don't use GoDaddy for domains. I use Namecheap, but because I wanted to show most of y'all who would be using GoDaddy how to do it in GoDaddy, I've kind of purchased already one domain in GoDaddy. It's called renzel.live. So I'm going to now connect renzel.live to that website that I've just built. All right. And I'm going to follow the steps that are, they're already laid out here in GitHub Pages. So what you need to do in GoDaddy is go to your products page. So if you just click on your name and click on my products, it'll take you to this products homepage. And if you scroll down below under domains, you should find your domain that you have already purchased. And in that, there is a button called manage my domain. So let's click on that. And then again, scroll all the way down. You will see something called manage DNS. So click on that. So the way the whole domain thing works is when you go to a domain name in the browser, then that domain name has to be converted into some sort of an IP address that your browser can then connect to and then request data from, right? So that whole process of converting a domain name to an IP address is called the domain name system, or DNS, and that works based on these DNS records. So the most important DNS record that you should be aware of is the A record, also known as the address record. And to set up your custom domain name, what we need to do is we need to set up an A record on what is called your Apex domain. So Apex domain is basically when if you have purchased renzel.live, then renzel.live is the Apex domain. www.renzel.live is a subdomain where www is the subdomain key, right? The part of the subdomain, but the apex of that domain is renzel.live, right? So in the way you would specify an apex domain in GoDaddy and even in other tools is by using this special modifier called @of. So it just means that this is the apex domain, and the A record is basically it's from one of the one of the subdomains or the subdomains of your domain name to a particular IP address. So it says here you need to give a valid IP v4 address. So that you will find in this document. So if you just scroll in this document, at some point you will find that GitHub has given these 4 IP addresses that you need to set up A records for. So I'm just going to copy each of them and add. So you can leave that TTL as default. So that is just something to do with caching. So I just know off the top of my head that these are the numbers. It just increments by 1 every time. So I'll just fill that in without looking. And 11. Okay, so I've added all the 4 A records. It's also nice to add these AAAA records. So so AAAA is the same as A records. These are using IPv4 addresses, that is IP version 4 addresses, and 4As are using IP version 6, IPv6 addresses. So it's good to have IPv6 addresses more from a future point of view, because the number of IP addresses are very less, and it's just good for the general health of the internet is what I've heard. But in the interest of time, right now I'm not going to add them. You can just do that yourself using the same method. You just have to click add, and there are those, there is an AAA record, and just follow the same steps @of and put those values. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to do the other steps mentioned here. So apart from an A record on the Apex domain, so what this does is when anyone goes to renzel.live, it's going to tell that the browser should go to this any of these 4 IP addresses, whichever one works. If the first one doesn't work, go to the second, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have 4 for redundancy, and then ask that the machine over there to kind of give me the website for renzel.live, right? So for this to work on the GitHub side, you have to come inside GitHub, inside your repository. There is a settings button. And in that, if you go to settings, you will see pages on the left. So click on pages. Right. And now it's saying your site is published at renzel.github.io, which we've been using all this while. So when you want to use a custom domain, they have this custom domain option here, and over there just put the Apex domain. So say Renzel, in your case, whatever is your domain name, put it over here. So if it is abc.com, put abc.com, for example, right? And click save there. So what happens with this is, now when we say renzel.live in the browser, and when it gets forwarded, your browser goes and contacts this IP address, which is a GitHub IP address, to give the details of renzel.live. Because we have told GitHub that this repository is renzel.live, so GitHub will serve our repository back, right? So that's how this whole thing will work. So just give it a second to update. So once you wait for some time, you can see that it says your site is published at renzel.live. So in my case, it's saying HTTPS. You may actually see HTTP, and you may see that this option is unchecked and you are not able to check it. So that's what happened to me in the start as well. So because I've already done this in the past, I think it has pre-configured my SSL for me and at the HTTPS for me. So not to worry, we'll fix that as well. But let's just go to this website quickly and just see if it works. So I just went to renzel.live, and you can see that it is showing me in the browser my website, and I can see my project, my website exactly as I designed it. You can also see in my case I'm getting a padlock because the SSL has been configured, HTTPS has been configured. So you may not see this padlock. You may in fact get a browser warning message saying that, do you trust this site, and it doesn't, have a valid certificate, etc. So there is a way to just still go ahead and preview the website. So you can just click that and preview it. So, but you can also see here that GitHub has an issue with, GitHub Pages has an issue with my website. It's saying that the www subdomain is, improperly configured. So, and if you actually look at their steps, they tell you what you need to do for the www, and they've mentioned it here as well, to add a CNAME record pointing to this this path, right? So let's just do that. So let's add another record. So a CNAME record is like it's called canonical name. So it's like a sort of like an alias. So you're saying that whenever someone visits www.renzel.live, instead of, like where should they go? Like go and ask renzel.github.io what should be the IP address, right? So that's what it kind of does. It basically keeps requesting the next domain name for the IP address, and that can happen in a long chain. It can be a very short chain, or it can be a very long chain. So I'm just going to add a CNAME record. And whenever you update DNS records, just know that it can take sometimes, they say sometimes up to 24 hours also for it to update. But usually it's a matter of a minute, right? So if your luck is really bad, then you may have to wait quite a while for the records to update. But usually it will happen pretty fast. So now, see, when I click that check again button, you can see GitHub is doing some DNS checks. So what it's basically doing here is it's checking your DNS records to see if it has configured the way it wants it to be configured. It's, and the whole DNS system works that way. Like it's publicly available. Anyone can publicly ask for DNS records. So you can see that it's still not yet configured. Like basically the DNS changes have still not propagated. So it's my bad luck right now. But what we'll do is we'll leave this, let it take its time to propagate. In the meantime, let us do something called domain name verification in GitHub. So domain name verification, I think, is something that you will need to do if you want to get that SSL option enabled. So for that, what I did is I clicked on my profile photo on the top right, and there is a settings button. Just click on that. You can come to this page. And then if you scroll down on the left, you get an option again for pages. Click on that and click on add a domain. And again, here type your Apex domain. So my case, it's renzel.live. Click add domain, and then it will tell you very clearly you need to create again 2 DNS records in your domain with your domain registrar. So these buttons are useful to just copy it. So it's saying create a text record with the following host name. So coming back to GoDaddy, I'll say add for DNS record, and I'll choose the type as text.txt. I'll put this as the host name, and if you come back to that, it says put this as the value. Right. So text records are basically used for any like a lot of purposes. Like DNS, any website can store arbitrary amounts of data and arbitrary data itself at the website's in the website's domain records. And one use of that is to basically verify that you are the actual owner of that website. Right. So by putting something which is which is generated by GitHub for your website on your domain name, which only you can do because only you have access to this interface to edit your domain DNS records. So by doing this, you're telling GitHub that you actually own your domain, right? So when you click this verify button, GitHub is actually fetching the TXT records of your domain and then checking whether it's actually got the same values as what they have asked you to put, and then it says okay, it's verified. So once you have verified this, if you go back to your portfolio repository, let's go back to that, right? And in your portfolio repository, click on settings and click on pages. Okay, now let's just see if first of all we still get the www error. It's not showing that, so I'm assuming it's probably fixed. And what happened for me the last time when I did this was before, when enforce HTTPS was not allowed, was not enabled, it started to become enabled because of that domain verification step that I had just done. So I think it's related to that. If you do that, then this gets enabled, and then you will be able to check this box. So it just takes a little time for all of these things to happen. So just give GitHub its time to verify your domain records. And once it does all that, even for HTTPS, it has to generate a certificate. So it'll take a little time. Just give it some time for all of that to happen, but it will be possible, and you will be able to check this box, which will then give you HTTPS instead of HTTP, which then means that your website will no longer show up as some sort of a security threat for your user. It will come nicely with a padlock saying that it is secure. All right. So let's just confirm that www.renzel.live also works. So it redirects to renzel.live, which is what is expected, right? So now, as you can see, all of my pages are hosted at renzel.live and not at the earlier renzel.github.io. Right, so that's it for this video. It's basically, in this video, I've shown you how you can build your own personal portfolio website from scratch using a code-based solution. You can go nuts with this. You can go really deep and tweak, starting with tweaking colors, things like that, which are very easy, tweaking the copy and all that. And then you can actually try to even play around with the code, try to see how you can, change the template or do some different things with the code and format things in different ways. That would be really cool. We've also seen how to set up a custom domain and also understood a little bit about DNS records and how they are related to your website. So I hope you like this video. Do share it with your network if you found it useful. I will be creating these kind of videos in the future, so do let me know in the comments below what kind of content you would like, and do subscribe to get notifications.